Revenge films.
My name is Kevin Smith. Ever since I was a little kid, I've loved reading books. As I grew older, I wanted to become an author, and all throughout school, I was always writing books. It was my dream. And when I was 20 years old, I applied for an award, and luckily, I was awarded the Newcomer Award. That was when I made my debut as an author. And now, at the age of 26, I've become such an established author that I publish a book about once a year. Recently, I've become so well known that I've gained international recognition as well. The person that supports me the most in my personal and professional life is my wife, Michelle. My wife, Michelle, works as an editor at a publishing company, and we first met because she was in charge of editing one of my books. When I turned 25 years old, I got married to Michelle. After we got married, Michelle moved into the apartment that I had purchased when I was still single. It was the penthouse apartment of a luxury high-rise apartment building, and we live there happily together now. To be honest, I was shy, and I had a plain personality. But Michelle is the complete opposite of me. She was good at her job, and she was a social butterfly. She was always helping me in and out of the house. Even though she was doing so much for me, she never complained or seemed unhappy. She would always be smiling and supporting me by my side. I'm full of gratitude towards my wife, who is so amazing, and I truly want to be with her for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, however, a person appeared in our lives that was going to try to tear us apart. And that was Michelle's mother, my mother-in-law. When we went to meet Michelle's mother for the very first time to tell her we were getting married, the moment she saw my face, she said,
"Michelle, what are you thinking? Why are you trying to get married to such a simple guy like this? Wasn't there anybody better out there?"
And she kept firing rude statements like this at me. Michelle said to her,
Yeah, all right, Mom.
And she didn't want to entertain her mother's frustration at all. And that's because ever since she was a little girl, my wife had a completely different set of values from her own mother, and they didn't get along. Even when she became a working adult, she said that she didn't see her mother very often. My mother-in-law had a big ego, and she had the type of personality to always look down on others. When she said that she was against Michelle getting married to me, Michelle seemed over it and didn't want to entertain her mother at all. I could tell that Michelle's father was also fed up with his wife's rude attitude. When we were leaving their house, he said to me, "Please, Kevin, you don't need to mind anything that woman says. Thank you for looking after our daughter." He whispered that to me on our way out. According to my wife, my mother-in-law was horribly obsessed with money. And if she were to find out that I was a best-selling author, there would be no doubt that she would come after us for money. And so for that reason, we decided that we didn't want my mother-in-law to find out about my work and my position. After we got married, we both discussed that we didn't want to get involved with Michelle's mother and try to avoid her as much as possible. However, my mother-in-law would contact us frequently, and it would always be things like,
"Come pick me up right now. I'm at a cafe. Take me shopping. I need to go to the mall."
And she was always demanding things of me. Every single time she would do that, my wife would reject her. But one day, there was a sudden downpour of rain, and she called us saying that she was out and wasn't able to get back home. I felt sorry for her that time, so I decided to go and pick her up. Michelle had an important meeting at work that day, and she wouldn't be able to go pick up her mother, so she was trying to say no. But it was raining heavily, so I said, "She's probably having a hard time in this heavy rain, so I don't mind going to pick her up." I suggested that, but Michelle said,
It's fine. You can just leave her. If you go, I know she's going to harass you the whole time.
but I assured my wife, it's going to be fine. I won't pay any attention to it anyway. And I hopped into the car and I headed towards the shopping mall where my mother-in-law said she was waiting. As soon as I arrived, when she saw me, my mother-in-law said,
Why are you here? I asked my daughter to come and pick me up, so why would you come when you're so simple and pathetic? Oh, how embarrassing.
and then on top of that, she continued,
Oh, that's right. My daughter is so busy as a director at a publishing company that she asked you to come pick me up. Because you're unemployed, you must be so bored.
She kept saying all kinds of terrible things to me, and once she seemed satisfied, demanded that I take the car to the entrance of the mall because she has a lot of things to put into the car. When I brought the car around to the front entrance, she loaded her bags and got into the car and then said,
Wait, what's with this luxury car? Oh, you must be so lucky that you get to drive such a good car thanks to my daughter's income. Must be nice to be a freeloader.
and she once again was rude. When I drove her to her house, my mother-in-law then said,
Wait right here, don't move.
and then she disappeared into the house. I was waiting in the car, but then when she came back, she handed me a piece of paper. When I looked at it, I was shocked. That's because she handed me divorce papers. I was so confused that I froze. And then she said,
After you got married to my daughter, I heard that she moved into your place, but you were unemployed anyway, so I'm sure you have a rundown, tiny, terrible apartment, don't you? That's why you haven't tried to invite me to your house once, isn't that right? You're a peasant living in an apartment, and you need to divorce my daughter and free her.
and then she disappeared back into the house once again. When I looked at the divorce papers, my mother-in-law had already filled in my name and my wife's name. When I got home and I showed that to my wife, she was furious.
Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. I'm going to cut off all ties with my mom now.
And then she picked up the phone and tried to call her, but at that moment, it seemed like she had an idea.
Wait a minute. Before I cut off all ties with her, I need to give that woman a reality check. Otherwise, I'm not going to feel better.
I could tell that she had something planned, and as a result of a discussion between the two of us, before Michelle cut off all ties with her mom, we decided to invite her to our apartment. So, Michelle picked up the phone and decided on a date and time. Her mother and father were going to come visit us together, and on that day we decided that we were going to tell her we cut off all ties with her. On the day of the plan, when it became noon, which is the time that we had agreed upon, my mother-in-law called us. When my wife answered, she said,
I'm here at the address that you gave me, but I don't see any crap apartments. Are you sure it's the right place?
When she said that, Michelle replied,
Who said that we live in a crap apartment? I gave you the right address.
and then she rushed down the elevator to the bottom of the building. When she saw Michelle come out of a luxury apartment building, my mother-in-law was shocked.
Wait a minute. Don't tell me that you live here.
And she raised her voice. Her husband was standing next to her, and he also seemed pretty shocked. Then Michelle said,
That's right. We live here. Now, come in.
and then when they got in the elevator, she pressed the button to the penthouse. My mother-in-law's jaw was on the ground and wasn't closing. I went to welcome them at the front door, and my mother-in-law said,
Excuse me, you're unemployed. How the hell can you live in such a luxury building like this?
and she tried to confront me. So I replied, What are you talking about? I'm not unemployed. That's when my mother-in-law finally asked me what I do for a living. But my wife replied,
Don't you know? Kevin is a famous author, and by the way, his annual income is $800,000 a year.
When she said that, the moment my mother-in-law heard it, her eyes were open so wide that I thought her eyeballs were gonna fall out.
800,000?
She yelled, and then...
If you're earning that much, then why on earth were you hiding that from me? You could buy us an apartment in a luxury building with that, so why don't you?
And just as expected, she made such an impossible request. But then, my father-in-law, who had remained silent the whole time, said, "Stop that! That's enough! It's embarrassing!" And he dropped his shoulders as he said that. But those words made my mother-in-law furious, and then...
Are you kidding me? You're the one that's embarrassing. You're earning less than your daughter's husband. Don't you think that's pathetic? Unless you can surpass $800,000 a year, I'm not giving you an allowance.
And then she started saying logical words like that. At that very moment, I think everything that my father-in-law had been holding exploded, and he snapped, "That's enough already! Don't you think it's embarrassing that you're judging your own daughter's husband based on money? And you say I'm not going to get an allowance? In that case, I'm going to have you leave! Get out of my house, and don't ever come back! We're getting a divorce! I'm done with you!" Normally, my father-in-law was reserved and calm, but he was raising his voice, and that was when my mother-in-law started to panic. Then she said,
Wait a minute, honey. Oh, you don't need to take it that far.
She tried to calm him down, but it was already too late. My father-in-law continued, "Whatever, just get out! We're getting a divorce!" And he kicked my mother-in-law out. She started crying and said,
Honey, please, that was just a joke earlier. Oh, please forgive me.
But he ignored her and kicked her out of the house and locked the front door. And then my father-in-law turned to me and said, "Kevin, I'm so sorry for all of the terrible things that she's said to you up until now." And he apologized to me. A few days later, my wife received a phone call from her mom.
Your father really did divorce me, and I don't have anywhere to go anymore. You have to let me live with you there.
She was begging, but Michelle said,
Kevin and I have also decided to cut off all ties with you, so don't try to contact us ever again.
That was all she said, and hung up the phone. My mother-in-law had nowhere she could go anymore, and I heard that she apologized to her husband multiple times, but she wasn't able to get him to forgive her, and she had nowhere to go. My father-in-law had fallen out of love with his wife's personality a long time ago, but he decided to get a divorce based on the terrible attitude she always had with me. After that, my mother-in-law was given permission to live in a tiny hut owned by one of her relatives in the middle of nowhere. But she had no income, so I heard that she's cooking some weeds that are edible and somehow getting by. My mother-in-law was always reckless with her money, and ever since she got married to her husband, she wasn't saving anything at all. And so, even though they had a separation of assets, she didn't gain a penny from that. As for my father-in-law, he had savings that he had from before he got married, and he told us that even in retirement he wasn't going to struggle for money, so he didn't want us to worry. After my in-laws got a divorce, we invited my father-in-law over to our place frequently, and we would have dinner with him. And recently, when we found out that Michelle was pregnant, my father-in-law was thrilled. He said that he couldn't wait to meet his grandchild. After we cut off all ties with her mother, Michelle seemed like a huge weight was lifted off of her shoulders. And even if she were to contact us ever again, we vowed to never have anything to do with her. My goal right now is that once our baby is born, I want to go on a family vacation together with my father-in-law. From now on, I can only hope that we can live happily together as a family.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.